This is just a free-form discussion and conversation. Perhaps at some point through the Film Society, kids who are going to this art campus over here can learn something from it. So we'll just talk about a little bit about everything. Well, first of all, welcome to Beaufort.
Thank you. Thank you.
How'd you end up getting him here?
Well, we worked together on the Hatfields McCoys in Romania, and we got to talking, and the careers are almost about the same length of time. And we were in New York in the theater at the same time. We just sort of hit it off and talking about, did you know so and so? Yeah, I knew them. Did you? He goes, no, never met them, but that, and we never met in the theater in New York, and we've never met in all these years in Hollywood.
Really?
But we know all kinds of people that in common. Anyway, we got along and great, and we had a number of dinners and drinks and chit chats on the days that we had scenes together and stuff.
Well, Tom gave me the call, said, you want to come to this film festival and everything, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll come, because I've never been actually to this part of the world, and I did a couple films with Nick Nolte and whatever. I knew Tom lived here, and then when he did Prince of Tides, they were talking about it and everything. And I'm always happy to support our business and people who are daring to make movies.
They used to make a lot more movies here than they do now, which is something we'll talk about a little later on. But what's this? How do you see the role of festivals like this in your business? How important are they?
Well, one thing, as I was kind of alluding to, obviously some, depending on the festival, some commercial films come and all those kind of things. But I also think it gives a big opportunity for documentary filmmakers, beginning filmmakers of very kind of short films and things, and they're stepping stones for those folks and buyers and all that. This is kind of a celebration. I mean, without getting a commercial into it, it's kind of a celebration of what we do, which I think is a good thing if you can pull it off at any time, and besides the cultural aspects and hopefully what it brings to your town.
And also we get to show off Beaufort a little bit, which is exactly where you were coming from with the festival. And I understand you're both big history buffs.
Well, Tom much more than me, but
well, he's a lot older than you.
Yeah.
Well, and he says, man, I'd love to see Savannah or Charleston. And I go, oh yeah, they're loaded with history. Even Beaufort, and like I said, well, the Spanish were here in 1560 or 1520 or something.
I can introduce you to a local historian who will convince you that all things North American begin right here.
Well, hey, Tom does a pretty good job of it with me already, and I get all the connection. It's one thing that's interesting about what we do. I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit. Is that our careers have taken us all over the world, and when you're there, you get to actually understand the culture and particular history there and how it's contributed to whatever to the world itself, and somehow or another, then the fact that this continent was discovered and where and when and why and development and all of it ties back in, like being in Romania, for example, just the not only ethnic history of it, but the fact that since the Saxons, those trade routes going through Bucharest and through Budapest have been fought over for all time for various reasons, and the discovery of this continent was certainly about, quote, proving the world wasn't flat, but it was really about money and new territories and trade and all that, looking for the Northwest Passage. And I don't know, just the older I get, the more appreciative I get of that. And in talking to the Romanians, and actually it was my 5th time to Eastern Europe, you get a feeling, these cultures and these people have been at different kinds of wars and different kinds of governments and different kinds of things for centuries and centuries, and we're such a new country, yet we have our own story to tell that's kind of tied in with theirs. And so anyway, it's fun, but just because part of our job is, of course, observing people and observing things and situations, but when you are, in effect, forced to deal one-on-one with people, and for example, little tiny thing. One of the first locations we were at, we were up, I don't know which direction, we were up near Brasov.
Yeah, due north of Bucharest and in the Carpathian Mountains, Transylvania.
We're Transylvania.
About 12 clicks from Dracula's castle.
So my first day going out there was going out there for a wardrobe thing, and we're driving along and I see these shepherds. And they've still got their sheep hooks just like they've had for centuries. They got their hats just like that. It was like, you know, we would have made Disney would have made a ride out of it. That's how nice they look. But I'm looking at them, watching the dogs work the sheep. And unlike sheepdogs that I've seen work over here, where they're like this and they're moving, they were doing the same thing, but they were on their belly. They never got off the ground. And I was like, wait a minute, stop. I made the driver stop, and I'm watching and watching. I thought it was just an aberration, but no, that's the way they did it. So it's like, they breed this dog a certain way. They do things, I don't know, small, silly thing, but it kind of...
It's a specialized cultural thing.
Yeah, it meant something to me.
So how strange was it to shoot the Hatfields McCoys, one of these quintessential American tales, in Romania? Was it kind of odd?
Well,
and first of all, since we're going to talk about the business of the business, that was part of the reason for shooting it.
Absolutely.
He knows the figures on how much cheaper it would have been than doing it in Georgia or West Virginia, which they had looked at. But it did look to me, and I had driven through West Virginia. It's a lot of hardwood trees, so we had all the leaves changing colors, and it looked like West Virginia or Eastern Kentucky.
You know how in the Smokies or the Appalachians, at sundown or sunup, you get that kind of, it looks like a mist, but it's not really, it's just the way the light filters through, and it looks sort of like a Matisse or a Monet painting in that it's illusory, surreal. And looking back down the valley from the Hatfield house that we built, it was just like that with all the colors of the trees and everything, so it's... The look was very
there were a couple of mountains, or what the French would call a massif, you know, that went up higher than those mountains, more like the Alps or something. And it could be above the tree line and there'd be snow, but we didn't shoot that because that would look like the Rockies.
Well, do you think is location and authenticity something that's kind of a thing of the past now in the motion picture industry? I mean, are there ever going to be Big Chills and Prince of Tides that are set where they were written?
Well, I don't know, you know, because some of those really old films were shot on back lots. I think Casablanca was all done in the studio.
Absolutely, every bit of it,
And I mean, one of the great stories is about the airport. Casablanca airport, where Claude Rains and Humphrey Bogart are there, and they go walking in the fog. Well, they shot that on the biggest stage at MGM, the old Esther Williams stage that used to have a tank and stuff, and they shot it in there, and they made the plane in miniature, and they had dwarves as the mechanics in the background, so everything looks like it's further away. But they were actually much closer.
Pete Jackson's still making movies like that.
They had this fog. They had this fog so they could cover up the back walls of the stages and it lit in such a way. And I've always wondered, I go, is there fog? And I've been in Morocco, but is there fog in Casablanca? Well, it's closer to the ocean, maybe there is, but I don't remember fog in Marrakesh or Ouarzazate, and that's desert. You know,
but the shot looked good. The shot looked good, though.
Oh, it was great.
You were talking about locations and things, and kind of to answer your question, I'm not sure that, for example, if you're supposed to be shooting in the Appalachians, you will again. I don't know, because just on this, I don't know exact numbers, but I was told they projected the Hatfields thing in Georgia with 35%. Anyway, Romania was half again less.
Yeah,
even flying us over and all this stuff.
It's just more outsourcing. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I always love shooting in the States on actual locations, I mean, shooting in Toronto for New York City, come on.
Well, I think it has something to do, I mean, I don't talk politics here, but it has something to do actually with our economy in general. It's been moving this way for a long time. We've lost, I'm gonna
manufacturing base.
That, but also just in the film industry, we've lost in the last 10 to 15 years, 50% of production's not in LA anymore. And I'm not saying that's all a bad thing.
Right.
But I'll say this, you know, when Arnold came in as a governor, being from our industry, he actually ran a survey, had it all done out there, and took it to the assembly, and told them that if they would give the film industry a 17.5% tax break, just from the state taxes, that they would triple the amount of revenue that came into the state purse. And they didn't disagree with him, but they thought, well, but if we give that to the film industry, why wouldn't we give that to all industry? My thought was, duh, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Because it's not the star's money, it's not the big shot director's money, it's all the ancillary jobs. It's, you know, crew, delivery people, catering,
it's the
boom,
work
boom,
base,
boom,
yeah.
boom. It's
Yeah.
the work base. So until politicians get it, I don't think we have any choice. If I were a producer, I'm going to be where I can get the best deal and make the location work for my film in a heartbeat. That's just business. And now, they've come to budget for it. They count on it from when the inception of a film being made, and that's just part of the game.
Do you think that carries down to, like, I'm a writer, should I be thinking about that in terms of if I'm writing something that's very site specific, is that going to lessen the chances of a producer picking it up, or should I be practical and think on the business end and make it?
I think it's probably a combination of the
voice?
two.
Yeah.
It's probably a combination. I mean, I think
And like if you did New York City, they've become kind of real film friendly.
they have
Right.
very.
Yeah.
They've got their tax situation, and then going back to whichever mayor you want to give the credit to, they coordinated all the unions. They got them not fighting one another, and like the fire and police department and all these kind of guys, and so it really works. They recognized, first of all, how much production they had lost.
Right.
And money, and why? Because all people were shooting Montreal and different places for New York, and so they did something about it. And studios have been built, and again, California, they have a teeny little incentive thing, but it's a joke compared to.
Well, we're sandwiched between North Carolina and Georgia, so we lose a lot of business. In a state that can double for just about any place.
Sure.
So you guys, when you did Chasers, you shot desert sequences right outside of Columbia.
I know, because of the sand dunes there.
Well, Tom was telling me yesterday, I'm in Forrest Gump shooting out here for Vietnam.
Vietnam and Honey Island.
Yeah.
So going back to your question,
Jungle Book too.
to me, despite, this is just my opinion, everything I'm going to say here is my opinion, the writers are the key to everything. It's a part of our industry that I so covet because I have so little talent at it. I mean, I've tried it and I write forever, and I'll write and I got a page, you know, and so I mean when
It
I
makes
get
me feel better.
when I get what it should, when I get scenes and things, I can say, oh, this doesn't feel right or whatever, or this line or blah blah blah, or this doesn't work, but I can't fix it. But you got to write to your passion in the story and where it's told. They'll adjust. They'll find a place to make it. I wouldn't, you know, if you had a story that's particularly indigenous of here, and the culture here or something, you know, like Prince of Tides or something, I certainly wouldn't move it to Jersey because they might do it better. I mean, believe me, there'll be enough suits.
Right.
There'll be enough suits from studios or whomever's put out the money to tell you, make changes. So you know, lay your heart and soul in
Start
that
out
stuff.
where the passion is, where the story is.
Right.
So you opened the door for writing. Let's skip. You guys have worked with some great ones.
Yeah.
I mean, David Milch and Lawrence Kasdan and others. Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
Both of you done Oliver Stone
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
How was that experience? I mean, since we're on this.
Well, we've talked about this.
We're talking about it today, actually, about Oliver today.
It's interesting. I among many
For the
things.
first time,
we discussed similar physical traits that he does, blinking his eyes and things like this, and
blinking, yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I liked about Oliver was, I don't know, when I first worked with him in Nixon, there was this kind of, he's this big scary guy, and he has this persona. I actually think I owe getting that job to Tommy Lee Jones, because he had worked with him and stuff. And somehow in the course of that, he said, oh, you did Blue Sky with Tommy Lee. He said, how'd you get along with him? I was like, great. He was like, wait a minute, you got along with Tommy Lee? How could you get along with Tommy Lee?
How hard is that
I
to do?
said, I'm a Texas boy. I have horses. He has horses. We grew up 115 miles together. Where's the BS here?
Yeah.
So anyway, but I tell you this, and we both agreed on this about Oliver, that the guy comes with his guns loaded. I mean, he's prepared, and he loves the work. He's to push you to get that spontaneity to get to that other place, wherever it might be, to not settle and move and move and move. The one thing he doesn't tolerate is someone that's not prepared or ready. And I don't blame him for that. I actually got on well with him in U-Turn. The film wasn't all that successful. It was a small film at his mine. It was
$18
million.
Back to his roots, I think it's a really great, overlooked little independent film.
I agree. And there's some fantastic performances. It's one of the only films, I mean, I could name the cast, but it's like 20 brilliant people that I would finish my stuff and hang out to watch them work.
Right.
And,
how rare is that on a set, by the way?
It is maybe a bit. Maybe you get 1 out of 15, 1 out of 12 like that. We definitely had it on this last one.
Yeah, we did.
We had 75 actors, and as he said, he said this 2 days ago. He goes, you know what's interesting? He says, there wasn't one asshole on that. I go, you know, you're right. There wasn't. Not one.
I actually talked to
75 actors.
To Kevin Reels about it. We were talking between...
this was the first time that Reynolds and Costner have sort of worked together since...
No? Oh, since?
Since the breakup on Waterworld, right?
Well, see, I don't know anything about that part of it.
Yeah.
But I know there was some sort of help on going back to Dances with Wolves and you know, way back. But there was a real ensemble feel in all this thing that we did. And I asked Reynolds, it was when we were talking, it was between setups
kind of like
something.
Platoon and Major League, that sort of team feeling.
I said, Kevin, when you guys were cast on this, did you actually delve into like personal character or anything like that? And he kind of didn't have an answer. And I said, like he said, like, well, there are no squeaky wheels. There's no assholes. There's always one. You know, and he kind of looks at me like this. And honestly, the young guys were not only very good, but they were very respectful, very into the project.
The girls were all kind of like tomboys and stuff. And,
you know, worked really hard. And but you look, it made it so much less difficult being halfway around the world and trying to create the film world that we were doing. That people were into it. There were a lot of things, the elements of this and that were against us, and so somebody's over there bitching all the time.
Right.
First of all, I don't think it would have lasted very long, because
right.
we would have put that down pretty quick.
So I want to get back to the Platoon thing, but eventually, because of the questions I have about directors. But since we're on the ensemble subject, like in Tombstone, were there like different factions? The guys that were there, the Cowboys and then the Earps, did they break up? That was it like that with the Barnes and Elias guys? Did they hang together?
No, we all hung together.
Yeah. We hung pretty much together on that film. Sometimes kind of.
I mean, we were Hatfields, but we hung out with.
I
mean, he and Bill Paxton are real old friends, and I loved the guy. And then I met him. He was hysterically funny. I mean, geez, one of the funniest guys I've ever met.
We would make cracks about, you know, no drinks for McCoys, blah, 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 you know, and, things like that, but it wasn't like that serious. On Tombstone, it was, first of all, everybody just loved that script. And
that is truly.
It was my understanding that everyone, I know I did, cut their money to do it. And, because, look, back to you, a great script. I don't know if you can do it numbers-wise, but they just don't come very often. And great writers, and certainly Kevin Jarre with Glory in that, demonstrated a tremendous character, story, all these things. So, and here's a story. This can maybe explain it.
All right.
My friend Val Kilmer. Didn't have, let's say, the most stellar reputation, that he could be a bad boy on sets and all that. He was a peach, not to use this. And I think it's because at any given time, and in most of the scenes, first of all, he loved that part, and why wouldn't he? One of my favorite quotes he ever gave, I ever read by anybody in an interview, they were praising his work, and he said, well, this part was written so well, Elmer Fudd could have played it. So that maybe explains it a little better, but I think
would have been an entirely different delivery.
He was into that part. So, but with, you know, in any given scene, when you got Kurt and Russell and Sam and different guys,
Michael
not going to put up with anything. You know, it's just, we've been doing it too long, and we're too, you know, I don't know.
This may be one of the most quote-worthy movies.
But he was wonderful.
Of all time.
Wonderful. He should have. I don't know how he didn't get a nomination for that part. I don't know how.
Because it was competing Earps.
Yeah, well, you know, Wild Earp came out around at the same time. And, you know.
Well, we were out and made money before they came.
Yeah, yeah. And,
That's one thing Custer and I didn't have a discussion about.
Was the two.
Competing project.
That it's funny you mentioned that because right before Tom came back and said that, so I think Powers might want to come to Beaufort to the film festival. And I had just told someone, before I even knew that, we were talking about the film festival, and so someone during the interview said, "What's your favorite movie?" And I said, "Well, you know, Tombstone. Tombstone's always been my favorite movie, you know."
That's right.
And
He was really jacked to hear that.
yeah,
He
I
was
came and
coming
said,
in.
"Wow, Curlyville Roaches, you know,
Yeah.
coming to Beaufort." And then, but at the same time, Platoon, because I had said Tombstone and Platoon, and then all of a sudden this article comes out after I found out you're coming. I said, "No, it kind of looks kind of funny that I said my favorite movies are Tombstone and Platoon." And,
We have,
well, I said,
verification, you said it before.
I know, yeah, I
And
said
you
it
said it to
before.
me.
I have witnesses, so, but it was really great, and we've talked many times about, you know, I was doing the Facebook thing, promoting the festival, and I said one of my favorite lines of the movie was when Wyatt Earp comes up and he says, "I just want you to know it's over." And you look up, perfect delivery. Well, bye. I don't know if you had to rehearse that or it just came, but it was just so
It was just
natural.
natural from my mother wit. Now there's a story on that. Kevin Jar originally was directing the film, and about 3 weeks in or 4, they replaced him. And George Cosmatos came in. George is a great shooter. He just didn't know what the script was about. And among other things, and there were many scenes. First, what they did, the producers, they ripped 20, 25 pages out of the script. And I'll give this a curtain vow. They fought for every page of that to go back in. And it wasn't necessarily, most of it was not their scenes. Because the story and everything was so tight. They knew what it was, and they weren't going to let them just try to turn this into some cheap action western.
Which it could have been.
Absolutely, it was the character that carried that piece all the way through, and how they interrelated. And they got it. But on that particular scene you were talking about, we came out. This was not unusual. George did this pretty often. He said, "We got the wagons lined up and all this stuff, and we kind of rehearsed it a little bit. And as you may recall, there's a moment when they're talking about leaving and all this, and all of a sudden Dana Delaney comes walking out of an alley, crosses like that, and Val has a line, and she walked out of our lives forever." And so George, he's explicit, like, he just says, "I don't know why we shoot this scene. We don't need this scene. What is nothing scene about? We don't need this scene. What are you talking about? Kurt, what do you think?" And we all kind of, by then we knew, so we all like did this little look. Someone, "Man, I don't know, John. I think we really, we're here."
Why
What else to do?
I really kind of
Already set up to do it.
think we could use it and everything, and what you bad guys think? He always called us bad guys. I hated that. We were cowboys, you know, and they said, "Man, Jordan, you might as well shoot it, man. You know,
You're here."
So anyway,
Everybody's
okay, we shoot it, but we won't be in the movie. We shoot it, but we won't be in the movie.
It's one of the standout lines. That's,
Well, none of that, but the whole point of it, and again, there goes the writing, because, to my mind, why that line sticks is Earp. It's a big deal for him to say. When he's saying you won. Okay, so what am I supposed to say? Well, we did win. So well, bye.
yeah.
Get the hell out of here. That's great writing, you know. And just a beat or two later, okay, you said I blanked on my sidekick, the gunfighter. You're blanking too.
Yeah, Michael Bean.
Michael Bean. He says, "God, Bill, you smell something? You smell like something died, man." you know, just that sticking it in a little more, which allows him later, again with the writing, to say, you tell him we're coming, and vengeance is coming. Great, great, great writing. That's the key to that. The performances couldn't be there. They never can be there.
Okay, so from a writer's perspective, how much trust? I mean, they're just laying there. The words on a page. Well, bye. I mean, it's right there. How much trust or direction does she put on the page?
You know what?
To help the actor.
If the character levels are there, I'll just speak for me. Like we discussed this about, for example, John Milius. We both worked with him too. When you read a John Milius script, when you finish, you've seen the movie, and it's like a great, great novel. You've seen it, the characters, the colors, and the pages. Only when you start to break down a script a little bit do the lines become more clear, and you see, oh yeah, that means, oh, it was over here, and that's it, oh, it means to him, and blah, blah, blah. If it's not there, then you have to kind of try to make it up and draw those lines. But if the great writers, it's
Well, I think if you haven't developed the characters enough, then that's sort of what shows you up. If you have to put in there a character sarcastically says this and such, then I don't think you've built up that character. You haven't made that character real, because you shouldn't have to tell them
we were always asking why.
why.
Why does he do this? Why does he say that? And great writing, you don't have to ask that as often, because it's, oh, that's what, oh. I mean, the worst thing is the director sitting there, he doesn't answer enough questions anyway. Try to the director to answer acting questions. It's tough.
Directing's it baffles a lot of people. What does a director do? How does a director speak to the actors? How does a director coax a performance out?
Some not very well.
Yeah, some not very well. I have a friend, my brother's an actor, he says they come in three types, the good, the bad, and the what the hell. So
some of them, it was, Tom talked about us being in the art of the theater together. I think you probably agree. I was astonished when I started doing films, because in the theater, the director's the king, right? He knows all this stuff, and he's into your stuff.
Well, a writer is too.
Yes, the director and the writer. But I was
that's
astonished.
a much more collaborative process in stage.
Yeah.
Right.
When I started making film, I was astonished how little a lot of directors knew about my craft. A lot of them basically nothing. Because they're into the technique of camera and telling story a different way.
Or film editor or something.
Second unit director coming up.
But I mean, they do learn, you know.
Yes,
they do learn. Like in camera, and a lot of camera guys, particularly in the old days, they would go, and cinematographers, they really see the good acting or something. And the director, well, you know, and he goes, no, man, that's what he did was great. I was like, you know, keep it, you know. They really did know.
So,
I mean, they kind of watched actors. They weren't just doing their own shtick. They were watching you. Same way we whether we consciously ask a question or, you know, something like that, we know about lighting and composition because we've been doing it for so long, and we watch when it works and when it doesn't work. And it's like, I got, even with a still photographer, I go, this person's good or this person's not good. This person's good, they're not good. This one's so-so, this mediocre. You can just kind of tell. I don't know why. You just
I guarantee you too, Tom and I have now
know.
talked about this, but I'll guarantee you I would be shocked if you hadn't hung lighting instruments in the theater. And
I did do that.
I did it, you know, different jobs of all, which is actually all the jobs.
And I ran the
craft
board for an opera. That was like kind of cool.
all that kind of stuff. And,
Can you still go back and do that?
No,
I
have to
wouldn't
relearn
This
it.
acting thing doesn't work out.
No, it's too late.
How important is that theatrical experience as far as being on the boards, facing a live audience, getting it from the ground up? How has that affected you? And is it something that's kind of going by the wayside?
You know, I've seen brilliant actors who've never set foot on a stage, and I've worked with them. And I've seen brilliant actors that were totally stage trained. I think there is a little difference, depending on their skill. I kind of feel a difference.
I do too.
You know, with somebody that's been stage trained and done all you don't even have to talk about it.
Yep.
I mean, I have to catch myself sometimes. I'll reveal. I tend to want to not turn up stage from the camera. It has nothing to do with film. It's actually some of your best stuff is not that way. But my instinct, going back to doing theater for so many years, is to, well, if they ain't seen it, who cares? I want to go back to something Tom said about earlier on when cinematographers and operators and things like that contributed much more than they do now. This is we're talking our age, this is pre-video assist.
Yeah.
When they actually looked at you. Initially, video assist came in just for framing. And then it became everything. And always the key at the end of a take, right? And the director would say, great, how was it for you, blah, blah, and then turn to the operator last and say, how was it for you? And he'd go thumbs up or thumbs down. Or you'd get that look. Sometimes you get that look from an operator, and he'd go, let's give you that little wink.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you knew.
Or if you saw him put his head down and go like
or he'd finish and he'd kind of go like
But
this.
I mean, and you'd probably remember too, is I remember like talking to them, I go, where's the bottom of the frame, where's the side, I want to bring this prop up, can you make sure I get that, you know what I'm talking, yeah, I got you, blah, 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 make sure, and he'd be watching, I didn't have to talk to the director or the cinematographer about that, it was the operator, and of course all those guys became cinematographers, so,
we were dancing together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly, and I loved it. I thought it was great, And,
it's much more disconnected now.
And a lot of it has to do with technology. I have to think. I mean, when you're sitting on, you did Inception.
Yeah.
Huge effects-driven film. You're doing that, and did you ever find yourself going, "Wow, this is really weird"? After?
Well, no, I mean, sometimes I said, "How are they going to do? How is this going to work?" Like I know they're blue screening this and all that kind of stuff. I go, but. And they go, oh, okay.
But it's not a bunch of actors in a house.
No, but Chris Nolan actually was never back in Video Village, was what we call that, back there, with the script girl stuff. He was always by the camera. I went, wow.
That's amazing.
Isn't that? Yeah. When's the last time? Wolfgang Peterson did that too. Yeah. Wolfgang Peterson did it, and and that's why he would never miss anything, because he'd watch the video thing and he goes, okay, that's great, that was all the camera moves and the framing composition and stuff. Then he sat on an apple box like the old days, right by the lens, just watching you, and I loved that. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Alan Rudolph did that. Never used the video assist, but it's something. It
brings so much more. I'll just speak as an actor.
We worked on Sliver. That guy, they shut down. I arrived at the set like, I don't know, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're probably going to shoot another 4 hours. And Sharon Stone's sitting outside her trailer like this, looking at the ground. I go, what's the matter? She goes, well, the video assist thing broke down, and we don't have the playback in Video Village, so he stopped shooting. I go, give me a goddamn Jesus. I mean, look, the money now. I'm like, I've just gotten there. I haven't even gotten hair, makeup, costume, or started. And she says, we're not going to shoot anything. It's just we haven't shot anything for hours. I go, what? Just do it. Yeah. Have the operator frame it. Come on. We're in rooms. We're not doing some huge.
It's almost like you're calling somebody on your cell phone over there at that bar, and suddenly your cell phone doesn't work, and you're like,
oh, I can't talk.
Frozen, I can't
I'll
do
never
anything.
get that drink.
But I mean, it's like they can't do this anymore. I mean,
I'll tell you something too along these lines, and I'm sure Tom will agree. There's something about the director sitting there on that apple box or watching with you, between that and the operator. You guys were, it was a subtle business, and we were pulling together. It wasn't so stark, so mechanical.
Yeah.
I remember Nick Nolte telling me one time he was doing something, and it was supposed to be an emotional bit, and he didn't want it to be like, big tears or whatever, and they kept doing takes, and the guy's in looking at the video assist. He said, well, Nick, I think we need a little more. And Nick said, no, it's there. I'm telling you it's there.
I was just going to do the same story.
And he said, no, I think we need a little more. Finally, he asked the operator, it's there. He said, we'll reshoot it tomorrow. And of course it was there. But what he was wanting to scream at him, if you would bother to come in here and watch me.
If you were sitting and watching in the light, provided instead of on that little flat screen there where it doesn't always reveal what you will later see in rushes or on the finished product. He would have seen that already, and I had the same exact thing happen down in Brazil, and Hector Berenger goes, and I go, you see this little monitor, and it's a little black and white monitor, and this is at night and the way it's lit. I said, it's there, you just can't see it.
That's right. That's right.
And then the makeup girl came up and says, he's right. I was there, I heard it off camera. And so he stopped, and I had the same thing with Hopper. Like we were shooting, like this, the blazing sun and all this sort of stuff, and all this stuff. He goes, you didn't? I go, I did. He says, no, you didn't. I said, yes, I did. He said, you did not. I said, I did. This was kind of like a little, sort of like a little action scene, and I said, you can't see it because you got this black and white monitor, and it's backlit here, and it looks like a silhouette. And I go, it's not what you're going to see in rushes, Dennis. I promise you. And he didn't want to admit it, but it was there the next day, you know. I said, I know I did it. I know I did it. And you saying I didn't, because I go, I can't see everything the way this is lit on this little black and white monitor. It's not a fair representation of what the camera's seeing.
It doesn't even look like anything, even with the better monitors and things today in the digital, it doesn't look like what it's going to look like.
No.
Yeah.
It's basically still depth of field and framing.
Yep.
I'd like to ask, with the two of you and the experience you have in working with a younger director, is there any chance to sort of school these guys a little bit on,
Well, the date,
on
look,
what you're talking
I don't know.
about, you know, looking at what the actor's doing instead of looking at the monitor? Is that over the line somehow?
Well, when I had these two issues, they were guys that were not kids. They were, you know, Dennis had already been an actor and all that,
sure,
you know,
sure.
and he'd come, he knew about the old days and all that kind of stuff, and Wolfgang had been a stage actor in Germany, and Clint Eastwood told me, he called me and he goes, what's this guy, this Wolfgang Pearson, what's he like? I goes, well, one, he's German, so he's organized, all right? I said, he will get you the best crew you can get in Hollywood. He goes, And I said, and then I said, he'll have you rehearse the scene twice in his trailer. You'll kind of just rehearse it like props, rough, this, that, you know, for the prop guy, this, that, and on the set. Then you go back to his trailer, you run it twice. Then you go back on the set, he runs it once to look at it on the video playback. Then he sits down under the camera like the old days. You remember that, Clint? I do. And I said, he sits under the camera, watches it, he does 2 takes, bang, gone. He goes, ooh, I like that. I go, no, I heard you did.
He has a great story from that. He said Wolfgang asked for another take on a scene. I think it's the one where he's watching the woman walk away. And he says, turn around. If she turns around, I got a chance, right? Whatever. And he does the one take, and Peter says he wants one more, and Clint says, no, we got it. That was it.
Well, they did get along great. Yeah, as I predicted.
So we covered directing, and we were kind of running out of time. I want to talk about good guys and bad guys. You both have played some pretty serious heavies. I always hear it's more fun. Was it more? Is fun the word to use? I mean, let's start with Sergeant.
Well, first of all, like Hatfields and McCoys, all these people are gray.
Yeah,
they're also full of pride, you know, and they're mountain people, so they got that feisty Scotch-Irish independence sort of thing that is also their Achilles heel, and you know, and this is like a Greek tragedy, both with the Paxton character and the Costner character. And it's kind of like the Trojan War, with, you know, the Greeks all fighting amongst each other and stuff, and all these great characters are suddenly at each other, you know, and you sympathize with all of them, but then you go, my God, why don't they get off it, or why don't they I don't know, adjust or do something to end this? But see, I have to say, almost all those characters in there are gray in some ways, aren't they? They lie. They, you know, like Matt's character, he's lying about this and lying about that, and then he, you know, and
which is interesting because it was what caused all the stuff to escalate was that it was an honor society, not necessarily a society of the rule of law. So. If McCoy...
He plays a judge, too. And there's this great courtroom scene that everybody's in, right? Everybody in the play is in this one scene. Yeah, it's kind of funny too.
Yeah, I hope so. If a McCoy female were to be involved with a Hatfield, even though it was all the best intentions and all that, each side felt a certain way about it, and so the honor part of it took over rationale, and actually that then began to escalate so that there was no rationale. And I know there were other things that led to it, but basically it was all about a pig.
Yeah, in the end, it's all about.
It's all about a pig. But on the other hand, as Paxton said, that pig would have fed my family for the winter. And you know, so they had 100+ years of killing because of this stuff.
So it sounds like you guys are saying that those characters are so rich. They're not black, they're white, they're gray. Is that what makes it more fun than playing an all good character and all bad characters playing a deep character?
I don't think there are such things as all good.
I've played all bad characters that I considered psychopathic, you know, and obviously there's the sociopaths and stuff, but 1 out of 10 people in Western society are sociopaths. I've been married to one, and you know, I mean, they could be your next door neighbor. I mean, I know a few. And so do you. And so do you. You got to be real careful. They're not your friends, or you're not married to them, or they're not your children, and you know, or related to you, or you know.
I've done a lot of heavies, and I've been offered a lot of heavies. Actually, I've done about as many good guys as heavies. Just that you remember the heavies more. And that's an audience thing, but
What are the heavies?
I can't tell you
better written.
Well, listen, I mean, this is what I'm trying to make.
Very motivated. And they could have their reasons, like Richard III's a hunchback, right? He's a good soldier, but he hasn't gotten recognition for what he's done. And you know, people that don't get recognition for what they've done start feeling bitter.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always had, I can't tell you how many meetings I've had, and I've asked, just to be facetious a little bit, like, okay, why does this person kill these 32 people? And the answer is some derivative of, what difference does it make? Well, then there's no point in going forward in the meeting.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know why, and you can't, what are we going to do? And also, just to be broad on it, I mean, Hitler thought he was right. And then the next part of it is, what do you think a murderer looks like?
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's shocking, going back to what you do, how many people in our business at a high level think in cliches.
Yes, and here's a couple of kind of classic cases. And one is like the Caine Mutiny trial. Humphrey Bogart's character. By the end, I felt so sorry for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though you go, what a martinet of a naval officer, you know. But in the end, when Jose Ferrer comes in and he's drunk, and you go, oh my God, this is the most controlled, disciplined guy in the movie. Comes in drunk, he says, you little assholes, I've seen this was the regular Navy.
Right.
You're in, you're out. That, you know what I mean? It's like, whoa. He just ruined that whole cocktail party.
That whole
sequence
for Ferrer would not have worked had not you felt that sympathy from Bogey in the trial like that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
again, good, great.
And I was going to say the other thing I'm thinking that comes to mind too is the Nixon Frost movie, and I loved Nixon in that movie.
Right.
I loved him.
You did have so much empathy by the end. Yeah.
I love the last scene
Yeah.
where they actually have a kind of mutual respect for each other. And a lot of that stuff is true. Nixon, I've heard stories about him, you know, being up at the Bohemian Club up there near San Francisco and like hanging around and talking to all the young waiters and waitresses after dinner while everybody else went back to the little camps and, you know, continued. He would sit there and talk to everybody.
He
was an observant guy and kind of...
When we did the movie Nixon, of course the left was all happy because they thought Oliver and his politics was going to destroy him, and the right was all freaked out.
Yeah.
I got to talk to Al Haig for about 2.5 hours on the phone. That was really interesting, and among other things. But when I saw the film, it actually brought tears to my eyes. Being a child of the '60s and the '70s and all the changes we went through, and it all kind of from you know, everything from civil rights to the Vietnam War and all that. The culmination of it was sort of like the end of Nixon. So what Oliver did in that film, and I wouldn't puzzle exactly. I felt a catharsis for the era. It was almost like a forgiveness of Nixon and for what we had gone through, and let's go forward. And that if he was thinking on that level all along and pulled that off, you know, my hat's totally off to him, because Nixon ultimately, in that film from Oliver, was not an unsympathetic character, as we were talking about. Now, you have to, I mean, Oliver does this thing of rehearsing before, and he usually brings people in and you rehearse the scenes, and they would say, Tom and I say we have 5 scenes together, and it's all starts here, and then there's later. We'll rehearse our 5 scenes. And so it was my time to rehearse with Tony Richardson. You don't know. Hopkins, excuse me, that's another movie.
Tony Richardson.
Cinematographer. That was No Blue Sky. Tony Hopkins. And so we did our thing, and something came, Oliver had to leave, and Tony was really down, and I said, after a little bit, you know, this great guy, Tony, you know, and I said, you okay, man? You all right? What's going on? So, okay. He says, I don't know if I can do this part. Now, this was about 3 or 4 days before shooting. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, gosh, you know, I'm a Brit, and this is American, particularly this, and they want me to do this and whatever. And I'm going, are you kidding? And so I said to him, I said, you know, I thought it was a little odd casting in a way at the beginning for a Brit to do it. But on the other hand, you're not going to make judgments about it. You're going to play the role. You're going to play the character. You don't have an agenda. And you are our leader. Therefore, we won't have agendas. We can then tell the story. And he was like, really? Think so? And I was like, dude, stop this. Whatever you're doing. And I knew the movie got him because he was so good. It's just marvelous.
Do you get tired of being identified with certain roles at times? I mean, do people still come up and, you know, on the street and identify you with Barnes or?
Yeah, sometimes, but you know, then somebody comes along and mentions something, you went, you saw that?
Really?
Yeah, I really like that. You know what I mean? And,
It helps that neither of you are one-hit wonders. That really
well,
helps.
that too.
I tell Tom, I think we get points for lasting.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
I'll speak on that a little, just for myself, because when I did Jones, I'd just I'd been in LA making films less than a year, and they offered me with this thing, and I read it like a Shakespeare play, and I just looked at that character, not the impact of actually what really happened. You know, obviously I did my research, but just thematically in that way. And I just did my best to play every moment as I do everything as true as I could. I had no idea it would have the impact that it would. And it was both a boon and a bane, because it put me on the map, but then I had to turn down every heavy imaginable for the longest time. And people still, so I'm pleased that anything that I did had a lasting impact on anybody. On the other hand, it does wear a little, but I love the fact that I've been fortunate enough to be in a Red Dawn or a Tombstone or something, so that I have some other kind of thing. Tom has done a lot of wonderful films, and I think we're fortunate if, well, I don't know, some people, every 5 years you get a brilliant script, and the rest of them you're trying to kind of get there. And
how do you choose a script? Well, is there something, does it have to grab you at a certain point, or
Please don't
what do you
tell me
look
by
for?
like 5
What do
pages
you
in.
look for when a script comes to you?
well, as Hamlet says, but he's really mouthing Shakespeare, who's the producer, director, writer of the Globe Theater. The play is the thing, and he's coaching this sort of humorous scene where this college kid, essentially, is coaching these professional actors on how to do a play and how to, you know, deliver, and also don't think this is all about you. The play is the star,
Right.
you know, that sort of thing. And you knew that with Shakespeare also talking to his own actors who are in that play and all his other plays. But there is some truth to that, you know. I mean, but of course we always learn at the theater is like the play is the story, and you are a part of it. So, you know, whether you're a big or a small part, you do your work within it, within the frameworks of it, and you have to be honest to the story and the character, and there is an honesty in acting, you know, like sometimes you go, that was such BS, he was way over the top on that, what the hell was he trying to do? That's not real, you know. It just, you know, and then you could see some of the quietest scenes where somebody's playing board and you go, brilliant, brilliant. Look, he played that boredom. That was brilliant, you know.
Yes. Well, too, that's the thing that film could do that theater can't do. Film can tell so much with no words. And as an actor, you can accomplish so much non-verbally that you cannot do in the theater. Just because you're here. The camera will go in and get it. You know, if you'll trust yourself to allow it to happen. But the play is the thing. I mean, to me, always it's the big story where my guy fits into that big story, the arcs and all that stuff, and then there's a smaller story, and then each scene has a story. And what I do find, this is what somebody said before about people that are theater trained and then not necessarily, because this is gross generality, but the most bizarre things that I've seen sometimes with folks that don't have that theater training or whatever, they come in and it doesn't matter what the situation is, they try to make that scene about them. They can give a shit about telling the big story or even the story of that scene, and that's tough.
Yeah.
That gets problematic.
Yeah.
With me and other actors that I respect and directors and things, because you kind of have to, well, a lot of different options, but hopefully you'll get that turned around somehow so that we can all do our work and get that told. I mean, do you agree, Tom? I mean, it's like,
yeah, I mean, because the biggest thing about acting, and maybe life in itself, is listening.
yeah.
And if you aren't listening, you're not doing that scene. You're not playing that scene, and of course you could say that probably about a lot of other professions as well. You know, I mean, writers aren't expected to just get up and talk. They're supposed to be watching and looking and observing and every kind of person they meet in society, and then use parts of them, blend a few people together into one character and tell this story. And even the stories can be combinations of different things from their life. But you have to observe and you got to listen, and then you got to do that as an actor. You have to do that the same way the writer did writing the play. Tennessee Williams did not want to put Big Daddy in the third act of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And Elia Kazan says, no, but you got to. And he goes, I can't. This is about Brick and Maggie. He goes, yeah, but you made this guy. And I'm telling you, the audience has fallen in love with him.
Right.
And the payoff isn't going to happen in Act 3 if we don't see him. We just hear that he dies off stage or whatever, you know. He says, put him in there. Williams says, well, all right. So he did for the Broadway production, but he had it published both ways.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, you know, so the reader of the play could make up their mind, but probably in the end, Kazan was right, you know, I mean, because he was a director, he understood audiences, and
Well, he
Williams
got
is
it right,
brilliant.
didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did, yeah.
Play endures.
You know.
We have a Big Daddy in the room, actually.
Coming up.
Yeah.
I'm in rehearsal right now.
All right.
So,
Is there-
And we decided to use the Kazan version
Yeah,
because he shows up in the third act. But you know, the guy that was directing it, we went back and forth and said, well, does it make sense to have him, you know, in the third act? And it's like, well, yeah, he needs to show up.
there's a
in the
payoff
third
on
act.
it, yeah, and I think probably Kazan was right about that. He probably was. But, you know, Williams was a very giving guy, you know, he could bend, and he loved actors too.
Yeah.
And Kazan was essentially an actor at one time, you know.
But listening to you guys talk about the words and the difference between getting quality writing and not, you know, working on something that's written by somebody like Tennessee Williams it's a privilege.
Well, you could sit off stage and listen to the dialogue, and I don't care how many nights you're doing it, and or, you know, you just go, my God, that guy could write.
It's astonishing, and there are all kinds of styles of extraordinary writing.
Let's talk about David Mills for a minute. We're running out of time.
sure,
but
sure.
Or Mammoth, the way Mammoth writes. Machine gun, big, 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 big,
Yeah. You can, even when he writes under a pseudonym, you can
Staccato,
still,
yeah.
you can get him.
He's got that staccato style.
We're running out of time. I want to thank you guys for doing this.
You didn't get the Mills?
Well, let's talk about it for a moment. Was that was lightning in a bottle? That was Deadwood was unique.
I thought so. I was, first 10 years I was getting paid to act. I did Shakespeare. Not my choice, I said it was one job leads to another. And one of my goals was always to do classical pieces on film with what I think is reasonably uniquely, at least rooted American realistic style. And I think Deadwood was pretty close to that. And the depth of his writing, character-wise, was extraordinary. I think I know, or I come prepared. And we'd come in and we'd rehearse the scenes, we'd do all this stuff, and then David would tell us what they were really about. And then you'd go, oh, God, yeah. Like, I'll do this real quick. There was a scene, there was two little hucksters came to town.
That's my favorite.
And they were conning myself and Ian McShane. And I get on to the girl, and she stabs her in the leg, whatever, and my guys beat the hell out of her in the street. Now we come to the scene where I'm gonna kill them both. So we rehearsed it, and it was, I thought it was really good and everything, and David come in and he says, you know, I always thought when you were in a room where murder was about to be committed, it was like everyone dropped acid. Suddenly, like, things, there were tracers, lines meant a little different, or looks were a little stranger, and it was quieter, not more. And I was like, what? He says, just try one like that. So I'm like, oh, so we did. And the camera did things, and it worked. Because not only did it get you through this murder of the, because that's not what the scene was about. The scene was about my madam who had betrayed business.
Right.
She had to see this. She had to do this because it was life and death for me and our business. These two people didn't mean anything. And you'd never seen my character quite step over that far, so therefore you could see where he had come from.
Exactly. Yeah.
The depths of where he had come from to look slick and a dude and all peacocky and all this and handle his business a certain way as opposed to the way McShane did. Now, hopefully I'm not reading too much into it, but that is also great writing. And I have to confess, totally, I never thought of it in those terms, but suddenly those words just make total sense. It can be an action, any action that a director will give you that'll take you to those places, but when they do, when they don't, it's more different. When you get that, everybody's kind of on the same page, you go, man. But to have that kind of literacy in his writing is, or any writer is extraordinary. And you know something? If you had one phrase on a speech, it didn't work, just like a soliloquy in Shakespeare. One word would throw the rhythm and the tempo of all of it to where you were going off. And I was like, oh, thank you, Lord, for letting me do all those years of Shakespeare and stuff. there was no ad-libbing went on that set. And it's extraordinary, extraordinary. I still bemoan its death.
I do too, as do so many of my friends. And I think we're out of time. It's a good note to end on. Thank you so much.
Thank
and congratulations on the Jean Ribot Award.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now you can quit.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen. This has been a pleasure.
It's fantastic, buddy.
Too bad you guys are so hard to talk to.
Well, you know, that's one of the things we've discovered. And you kind of, it's funny when you meet people, and like you said, we come the same path in a way. You realize people in common would never met, and then you kind of, okay, well, I respect you, but how can I do that? And then it was like proverbial water off a duck's back when and then you approach the work the same and da 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 da. So it's cool. I'm glad to have met the man.
Likewise.